Hey, what's up guys? It's Anthony from the Prado Hospital. Look, I think it's really important that we have a talk about servicing, scheduled servicing, and what's required kind of by the book, and possibly, what isn't required by the book, and some other things that are required. So this is going to be one of those videos that goes on a little bit, fair bit of talking. You might want to get your pen and paper handy. Look, it's all in your service book. It's all in your service schedule. It's not all there. Generally, it's all there, and if you read that, it'll tell you what's involved. But part of this video, I'm going to explain to you in more detail what's involved in some of those bigger services in particular. Every 40,000, the valve clearance check, exactly what's involved in those, and what the likelihood of it actually happening, and the possible contamination to your fuel system. So we'll start off with the basics. I think we've covered this before, but look, I just want to be sure, because people are asking questions, and the idea is to get the questions down to a minimum by putting information and answering the questions. So, starting off with all your first services, well, I just want to say as well, I do the best I can. Sometimes I use the wrong words, like I noticed in one video I said that's supposed to be done every 160,000 k's. What I meant was it's due at 160,000. It's supposed to happen every 40,000. So look, if you notice a bit of a glitch, a few people let me know, that's awesome. Just let me know. It doesn't mean I can fix it, but maybe we'll do a bit of a correction. If it's something really important, obviously we're going to take it down or change it, but if it's something that's small, it doesn't really matter. Look, the quickest way to get through to me is a text message, 0490 261 013. I'm very busy and I don't have unlimited time to answer comments and stuff on YouTube and Facebook and whatever. I do the best I can. I skim through mainly on Facebook. It's easier to answer questions. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you've got questions and you want more information, try not to text me a general question. It's better to get in one of the relevant groups, which we've shown you in other videos. Groups in Facebook, choose the most relevant group, ask the question there. I'll eventually get to it, and the other guys can give you their information experience as well, which is all good information experience, that's reality. So, all right, so getting started, all your first services, quite commonly people take it into the Toyota dealership, aka stealership, people seem to call them, better known as a stealership. Anyway, look, the cap price servicing is really good value for money if they actually did everything right and by the book and without damaging the vehicle. So let's not talk about whether they're doing that or not, but if they did it right, it would be awesome value for money. 210 bucks or something, sometime last on a 150 Prado. Has that changed? Anyway, it doesn't matter, thereabouts. So 10, it's a new vehicle, there's nothing to see, it's an oil change, right? Let's face the facts, the tyres aren't worn out, either of the brakes, nothing else, oil and filter, lube the drive line. Look, it's a full safety check anyway. If you brought it to me, that would be your cheapest service, because it's a new vehicle. We're just checking we're really checking to see if they've done the PD properly, because do they check cars properly at the PD? Do they even do that? Do they just charge you $1,000 and just boom, out it goes? Look, I don't know, that's for you to work out. That's what we'd be doing on a 10, 20 or 30,000, really just checking to see if anything wasn't right from manufacture, which with the Prados, generally everything's right, quality vehicle made in Japan. Once you get to 40,000, you've got a bigger service. Now, what's involved in a 40,000? I'll talk about the things that are in every service first, and that's once again, it's a full vehicle check. There's a lot of things on the list of checks, and we'll get to that. But as far as parts replacement and oils and lubricants, that's what we're going to talk about. The physical things that get replaced. So at every service you've got oil and an oil filter, every 10,000. They're the parts that get replaced. Obviously lubing the drive line if it needs it. Look, by the book it's every service, just depends how the vehicle's used, if it needs it more or less than that. It does vary a little bit, but they've got to put a guideline out there. Every 40,000, sorry about that, just had a phone call on the other phone, sorted that out. Every 40,000, let's call it a major service, because it's kind of like the bigger service that comes around every 40,000. And what's on there? Well, let's have a look, right? Where's a 40,000? We've got, okay, well there's an 80, that's similar. 40,000, and here we go, we've got a piece of paper for 40,000. So it's in dark. If you look in your book, you don't have to look on these pages. They get torn out as a checklist for the technician working on the vehicle to make sure they've done everything, or they can at least go through it and go, yep, I don't need to do that because I know it's okay. E.g., there it is, tighten propeller shaft bolts. Okay, they just don't, they're not going to come loose. You can't tighten something that's tight. It's mainly if the vehicle's been worked on before and been left loose. So technicians have got to check, or you've got to check what actually needs to be checked. So looking at the bold things, replace air cleaner filter petrol models. Well, that's relevant on a petrol. We're mainly talking diesels here because I've got to say that's all we see here. I'll say 90%, but it's more like at least 99%. I don't know if maybe the petrol owners, cheaper vehicle. Hey guys, sorry about that. Had a phone call come in which interrupted the video. You get that? So yeah, 40,000 Ks we were saying. Look, let's just talk about the diesel, because the diesel is the popular vehicle. It is 99% of all the service work we see and people inquire about, so we'll talk about that. The petrol's very similar. It's just mainly fuel and air filters at different intervals. It's all here in your book, but look, I just want to talk about the more, a few bigger things that happen every 40,000. So the dark color thing, replace fuel transfer system filter diesel models. That's the rear fuel filter above the tail shaft. We've done other videos on that. There's one we did recently which is really clear on how to release the clips. You don't want to break those. You just got to make sure you're subscribed, you got your notifications on. If you like the video, thumbs up. Look, don't worry about the thumbs down. If you press that, I think you made a mistake. You're having a bad day, right? There's no thumbs down. It's all good. If you don't like it, hey, I do appreciate if you don't like it, shoot me a text message because I'll see it, right? 0490 261 013. Okay, down the bottom, replace front and rear differential oil. Okay, so basically we've got a service with the normal stuff. The only extra thing on a diesel engine so far on this page is replace the front and rear diff oil. This one we need to turn it over. You've got replace brake fluid, so that's basically drain, refill, bleed the whole brake system. Needs to be done every 2 years or 40,000 Ks. Rotate and balance wheels, whatever, you've got to check your tyre wear. If the tyre wear is okay, you don't have to do a rotate and balance. It's just more wear and tear on your wheel nuts and your everything. It's just unnecessary. If the tyres are worn enough that you can see there's a bit more wear on the front than the rear, then you may want to rotate them. I'm not going to go into too much detail on tyre rotation and why it doesn't really matter whether you do it every 5, 10 or 20. It all equals the same in the end. If you get that, that's good. We'll do it more in detail another day. So going by this 40,000, there's not a lot of extra things to be done on the service. The way I read that is you've got a rear fuel filter, you've got your diff oils, and you've got your brake fluid. Now I'll add to that a couple of optional extras, and that's if you do a lot of off-road, you can replace the transfer case oil, okay, which I'd suggest doesn't need doing at 40. Probably, look, it just depends how much off-road you do, whether you do it every 40, 80, 120. It's fairly clean, still over 100,000 Ks at 120, 160, 200, I've seen them. Look, it's not good, but it's not bad. So look, it's not going to hurt it to leave it, but it's going to be better if you change it. And we're talking about roughly 1.5 litres, we're talking of a small amount of oil if you're doing it yourself. The other optional extra is the underbonnet fuel filter isn't a standard replacement every 40,000 or at any schedule. It's when the light comes on, there's a pressure sensor, which we mentioned before. We got other videos on changing that underbonnet fuel filter, so you need to check those out. It's optional, but we recommend changing it every 40,000 Ks or once a year, okay? So if you go on outback trips and stuff like that, always carry spare fuel filters, air filters also, cabin filters. So basically your 4 filters. When you get back from an outback dusty trip, that's when you're going to change your filters. Or if they become blocked while you're away, you can change it while you're away. Okay, so that's pretty well covers a 40,000 service. Now, you've basically got the same things every 40,000. So 80,000, 120, 160, 200, and it goes on. Now, your air filter and cabin filter are due for replacement every 30,000, right? So that sort of falls on, let's have a look, what do we got here? Where's it? I don't know, I've got all this mixed up. Where is it? Anyway, I thought I'd lay it out and make it easy. Here we go. So 90,000 K service. Okay, there it is. Replace engine air filter diesel models, right? Replace air conditioner filter. Replace engine oil filter. Well, that's part of every service. Okay, rotate and balance wheel. Let's have a look on the back of that one. Have a look. No, nothing on the back. So, as I said, so your biggest service, when you look at the both of those together, every 40 and every 30, they both come together at 120. So your 120,000 K service is going to be kind of your biggest one of all as far as without getting to the timing belt one and replacing injectors, obviously. So there it is. Look, we'll just grab that. Okay, so there's nothing on the back. I don't know why with this one it's not in bold. So that's what I mean. All these books, they all vary from one to the next. So it's a little bit harder to read compared to the others because it's all just changed a bit. So oil and filter, rear transfer filter, brake fluid, lube propeller shaft, tighten propeller shaft, replace front and rear diff oil, replace air conditioner filter. Yeah. Did it say replace air filter? I mean, it is. It definitely is. What's this? You know, like, let me just, got to read it for myself, you know. Replace air cleaner filter, all models. Okay, sorry, I missed that third one down. So basically on a 120, you kind of got everything. It's your biggest service really. I'd suggest it's going to cost you over $1,000 without the valve clearance check, and we're going to get to that shortly. Sorry I dribbled on a bit, but it needs to be done slowly so I don't make a mistake, and there's just, trying to explain to you clearly, there's so much to explain really, it's a bit overwhelming. But look, so your valve clearance check, this is what's meant to happen. Every 40,000 Ks, and I think I'll do a separate video on this as well, but every 40,000 Ks, by the Toyota book, when it goes into a Toyota dealership, and they are, you know, Toyota approved and everything, they really need to be doing it as per the book, because they're Toyota, right? The injectors are supposed to come out, and all those seats and O-rings get replaced while the valve clearances are getting checked, right? So the only way to check the valve clearances correctly is to get in there and check them with a feeler gauge. There's no listening. We did the listen thing. There's none of that. None of that works, okay? So we already know they tighten up. They don't generally loosen. They tighten up. And you're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear anything. But look, generally they don't go out anyway. They only tighten up to basically the minimum specification, give or take. They're generally fine. I just about guarantee everyone's valve clearances are fine as long as you haven't got a catch can without a plate, because that takes the oil out of the intake and allows that dry abrasive soot to go through and wear your valve seats down. We've seen it before. It's not a big issue, so they'll probably be fine, but we have seen that, you know what I mean? So anyway, so that is the correct procedure. The proper procedure is not bend the fuel pipes, rip the valve cover off and scratch that up and all the dirt around the pipes and injector inlets and contaminate your fuel system. But this is what happens, right? You've seen it before. Watch all the videos. You've seen it over and over before. If you ever buy an injector kit and get into the VIP group, you're going to see it. There's heaps of videos there. Whenever I work on a vehicle, there it is again, boom, again. You see a lot more in the VIP group. A bit of a loyalty thing, right? You know, I'll give all this to you for free. You support me, I'm going to give you some more. That's the deal. It's a loyalty group. So that's the proper procedure. Generally what they do, they don't pull the injectors out. I don't know if they're scared of taking the injectors out and cleaning the seats. It creates more work. They've got to do it quick, you know. Cap service, I think you get what you pay for. Cap service, remember, 40,000. Cap service, $210. So what are you going to get? You're going to get what you pay for, right? You're not going to get hours and hours of work is what it takes to take the pipes off properly, the valve cover, clean everything properly, inspect everything properly, and replace those parts. That is the correct procedure. I don't see that happening. That's not what we see. We see plenty of cars come from Toyota dealerships last, other workshops, and that is generally not what's happening. Now, that being said, I'm sure there's some places and some dealerships and some technicians that do the job right. But look, they're sort of under a bit of pressure to get the job done quicker. So look, it's not always going to happen. It's up to you to work out what's actually happening. What I'm going to say is what the Toyota workshop manual says. Do not risk contamination to this fuel system unnecessarily. It's imperative to keep it clean. Taking fuel pipes off is risky, okay? Straight away, I'll tell you, it's risky every time you take the pipes off. Those nozzle holder seals can be full of dust, dirt, corrosion. It's all around the nuts, the pipes, the threads of the inlets of the injectors. Mate, I'll be lucky if I can get a set of injectors out and put them back in and reuse them on an old dirty vehicle, okay? Not that I'd want to, and I don't have to, luckily, because the vehicles that come to us, they generally come in for new injectors. The way to do it is, you don't rip your injectors out and check your valve clearances every 40, they'll be fine. When you change your injectors, that's when you check your valve clearances. Once the job's done, do not let anyone open your fuel system unnecessarily. There's no filtration after your filter, right? It's got to be hospital grade clean. Get it? The Prado Hospital clean. Okay, so that's what's going on with your valve clearance check. To do that right, it's going to cost a lot more. By the sounds of it, it's only costing a few $100 more. So they can only be bending the pipes and slipping that cover out, not pulling the injectors out. They're working around the injectors to check the valve clearances. You can do that. It's just not the correct procedure. Whatever, you're going all the way in that far, you may as well take the injectors out and replace the seats, because we know that is definitely more of an issue, the durability of those seats. They're good seats, they last ages, generally over 200,000, sometimes less, but I'm not saying to leave them there that long. I'd recommend replace them around the 160 to 180 mark, depending on usage. You need to talk to me about that to work out what the best kilometres for you is. So that's the bigger thing every 40,000 k's. I hope I've explained that fairly well. All your most minor services are like your 10,000, your 30,000, your 50,000, 70,000, 90,000's got air filter, so similar, but it's got the air filter. Your 110's minor, your 130, your 150's got the time belt and everything. So once you get to 150, the standard service, the only extra thing over and above the air and cabin filter is the timing belt. That's the only thing that's standard. It's a bit extra work, couple of hours, you know what I mean? So it's not a massive extra cost, but the fact that you're going in there every 150,000 k's only, which can be 5, 6, 7 years for a lot of people, you want to make sure it's right, so it lasts another 5, 6. It's a long time before it's getting inspected again. You want to make sure all those nuts and bolts are torqued to spec. The washer's not missing from under the idler, because people forget to put that in. You've got to have the washer underneath the idler where that bolt goes on. And new parts, you know, just replace the idler and the tension, I think is the best thing. It's done 150,000 k's. It's probably not going to fail, but it may. And for the small amount extra while you're in there and it's all coming off, just replace it. And the same goes for it's really wise to think that way about the water pump and the drive belt and the oil. It's the big front engine job. We've talked about that. We've got other videos on that. Just do the whole lot. It's only every 150,000 k's. Boom, get the job done. Okay. So I don't know what else I can tell you about servicing. I mean, there's a whole list of stuff here that, you know, we can go through it. It's the same checklist they've had on vehicles for 50 years, you know what I mean? Check that, okay. Drive belts. Yeah, well, check cooling system and heater system, and that the radiator cans are not blocked with leaves, dirt, insects, whatever. Well, that's all right, yeah, you know. I always say to people, see all these leaves and stuff, you know, don't park under trees, and if you do, you got to get out there pretty regularly and clean it all out. It all just rots away. It goes down in places you don't want. It's going to cause rust, block things up, and cause problems. It's not the Toyota that's going to give you problems. It's all the aftermarket accessories and the debris. The sun is what wrecks everything. The weather, it's the environment. You know what I mean? So, exhaust, engine coolant, exhaust pipes and mountings. Look, it's all going to be fine. You have a look at it, but the exhaust pipes and mountings are fine. It's a Toyota. That's why you brought a Toyota. Nothing to check, you know. Sorry, but you know, there's not a lot. All the usual things that we check. It's in another video we did recently. It goes for about 20 minutes, and we talk and show you those bushes that you check wheel bearings. You've really just got to watch all the videos. We got, as I've said in other videos, hundreds of videos on YouTube now, more going up every day. Subscribe, you know, press the notifications on so that you get notified. Watch it that night, so that way you don't fall behind. You've got a lot of catching up to do, and you don't want to fall behind even further. Check your battery, yeah. Water sediment accumulated diesel motors. Well, you know what? I've never found, and I should never say never, a couple of times, but virtually almost never found water in a diesel fuel filter on these Prados that come in. So, you know, I can tell you water does go through filters, because I do find injectors with contamination, internal contamination. So water does go through filters, any filters, you know, cars with extra fuel, it still goes through. You know, it gets shaken up, mixes with the fuel, and it goes through, okay? When it sits in the injectors, it does cause, you know, surface rust and corrosion. That's why we say, please send us back your injectors, because for the two a year or whatever it is, if we haven't checked your injectors and you got water in your tank, guess what? You just wasted $3 or $4 grand, because you've just left, you know. Doesn't matter if it's a week or two, whatever, and then we can let you know, you get your tanks out, clean it. It'll be all right, but you know, why do you leave it in there for 6 months, 12 months, and you don't do anything about it? Slowly it'll work through and you'll get the water out anyway, but how much damage is it going to do to the injectors? Anyway, we're getting off topic. The point is, you know, this whole list here, right? Fuel tank lines, connections, vapor control valve, petrol models, charcoal canister, petrol models, fuel cap, fuel lines, connections, brake pedal, parking brake, you know, it's all fine. If there was a problem with the brake pedal, you'd know about it. You know, linings, drums, you know, you got to check your brakes, pipes. So the brake pipes and hoses, they're not going to go anywhere. There's nothing wrong with them. replace them at 400,000 or something if you like, because they're getting a bit older. 10 years, 15 years. Look, I see them at 15 years, they're fine. So that's what I'm saying. Kind of like, what are we going to go and check brake hoses we know that are fine? No, there's no problem. Steering wheel linkage, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere either. Drive shaft boots, yeah, you got to check those. Suspension and ball joints, yeah, look, on the 120s and 150s, the ball joints and dust covers are fine if they're genuine control arms and that. When you start going aftermarket stuff, you may see some issues. Transmission fluid, look, what are you going to do? Check that. Yeah, all this trouble to check it, you're going to leak oil. If it hasn't got an oil leak, if it hasn't got an external leak, it hasn't got a leak. There's nothing to check, right? So transmission, yep, she's good. Automatic transmission, full manual transmission, or same deal. If you haven't got an oil leak, it can't be leaking oil. Now, the only place that varies is the power steering, because the rack can leak externally into the boot slowly and you won't see it, and the power steering pump can leak into the engine oil and you won't see it. So they're two things you really got to monitor the level on the power steering. So this video is getting a bit long, so I'm going to call it a day. I hope that explaining some of those services and etc. has helped you. Congratulations if you watched till the end, because a lot of people didn't. And remember, if you liked it and you got something out of it, give us the thumbs up. Make sure you got subscription on and notifications and all that. You're just falling behind. You know, there's a lot of people watching this video for the first time that haven't seen the other hundreds, and they're busy. Well, you've just got to prioritize. You want to learn about the vehicle and prevent the problems that arise if things aren't done correctly, or do you want to just keep being busy? All right, guys, hope that's helped. Have a nice day. See ya.